Let's take some time to talk about this, a walker that many of you use. Many of you use it correctly, and others, far too many of you, also abuse the way you use walkers. And that's because you depend on them for more support than they are designed to provide you. And that's because you're using them for more than the secondary support that they are designed to be. The primary support is always you, it's always your legs and feet, controlling your posture to control the pressures on your feet to allow you to have those better movements. And this is there to help you with your balance when you need it. And it serves a great purpose, but it can also create a big disservice if you're not careful with how you have it adjusted physically, the walker, and how you adjust your posture to be able to use this in the correct manner to keep you safer, because this by itself is not designed to keep you safe. Sorry, newsflash, but this is not designed to save you. It's only plastic and some light aluminum, and it has no capability to save you from yourself. So as I often say to the people I work with, if you do something stupid, this will do something stupid along with you. It has no power of its own. It has no motor. This one has no brakes. Everything that this walker does is what the user makes it do. It can't pull you forward. There's no motor. There's no means for it to pull you forward. You're pushing it forward because your posture is leaning into it. And you hear a lot of people say that the walker pulls them forward when they're using the wheeled walker with the brakes. But that's just their incorrect use of the walker. The walker itself, this is a 4-post walker with the wheels on the front and the skids on the back. And most walkers, when they're properly set up, they're designed to have the front and back pair of legs at an angle pointing a little bit outward to give a little bit more stationary support. This one, you can see the front legs do go forward a little bit, but the back legs are pretty vertical. Now that in itself is not a problem, but it does give a potential for misuse to happen just a little bit easier. Now with the skids on the back, provided you're on a surface where it lets it slide, that's not so much of an issue for most people, but others it is, especially when those don't have skid on the bottom. They're just the post. So when you have these walkers adjusted, it's nice to have both those legs splayed out. This one we can't get that way because this one is designed this way, but this bar up here should be pretty much to the floor. This one angles back just a little bit. And there again, that variation by itself doesn't cause any harm. Ideally, the way you want to be using these is standing with your feet on the inside of the frame, and I'll do this. And when you're pushing down into the walker, because everybody that uses these will be pushing down into them because their legs are a little bit weak and their balance is a little bit off, so they need that bit of support. But when you're pushing into this walker with your hands here on the handhold areas, you want to be pushing straight down into it. You want to have your body weight, upper body weight, going into those legs, all 4 of you equally. That's when this walker will be the most stable. With these being more perpendicular to the floor, And especially with people that are leaning back a little bit and have their hands towards the back of it, it's awful easy to cause this walker to tilt back towards you. Some people will have this adjusted so these back legs are shorter than the front. And here with these lowered down one notch, you can see how they are actually pointing in. So now, that same person back here, there's much more of a tendency for that to tip back. And even for those people that are a little bit closer, that get forward and end up pulling and pushing backward on this, especially when they become unstable, it's easy to tip this back. Why do people do this? It's mostly because of those people who are standing here pushing on this with far too much weight and have had that problem with it tipping forward. They're putting so much pressure on and they're trying to push this forward. Well, when those don't move, this gets tipped forward and over they go on their nose. So what they have done is lowered these back legs, and now when they push into this, because they're pushing forward at an angle, they get away with it, and it's a little bit easier for them to manipulate, but it puts undue stress onto the frame and undue stress onto them, instability and problems after problems. And they'll have so much pressure on this, the walker will groan against the floor because they're pushing down so heavily onto it. Tell me what you feel. Keep going on and causing significant problems. And accidents that happen after that are also significant. It would be nice if you could walk as if this wasn't there. But let's face it, those people that require this, that's not going to happen because they need this for support. So adjusting this, we talked about the legs, we talked about this top bar, but how high should this top bar be where you put your hands on it? Well, this walker right here is too low for me. This is one that I brought from a friend, and she happens to be about that much shorter. So this, for her, is just right, where it's high enough that she has good flexion to the elbows, which means she is going to be more upright in her posture, more functional on her feet for support and stability, and using this less. But with me being taller, notice how my elbows are pretty straight. And now let's imagine I needed this for support. Look how easy it is for me to straighten my elbows and lean heavily into this walker. And this is exactly what a lot of people do. They'll be here, and as long as that walker is moving on the floor, they're going to stay that way. But there again, those people that do that with those posts, even with the tennis balls on them, they often skid across the floor. When that grabs, they're really gone because they're depending on this for almost a primary support instead of their feet. So it should be high enough where you cannot extend your elbows this way because you're trying to use this as a secondary support, trying to induce more support onto your feet and better posture alignment, so that is up here a little bit higher. This one is too short for those that don't extend their elbows. What they will do instead is they're stooped way over to get down to it. Now look at the postural problems that causes. They're on the balls and toes of their feet, they're leaning into the walker, and the walker is running away from them. They are pushing walker forward. Oh, the walker is pulling me forward. No, you are pushing it forward by having that pressure too far forward on your feet, by having your shoulders too far or stoop forward. This is one way people learn how to stoop. They're using this walker inappropriately, and then when you're trying to break them out of this, it's very difficult for them to come up here because they become so dependent on this walker being in front of them that they lose that posture of control, and they become dependent on that posture to be able to use this walker. Now, those people that do that with the wheeled walkers with the brakes, they even have more of a problem with that walker, quote unquote, pulling them forward. So you'll see them white knuckled, pulling on the brakes to stop the walker from going forward. That's what I refer to as the love-hate relationship that they have with their walker. Without realizing it, they are pushing the walker away from them, like saying, I hate you, get away from me, get away from me. But then it gets too far out, and they have to squeeze on the brakes and either pull that walker back to them or squeeze the brakes and then just shuffle up to it. That's the way they learn to move forward. Push the walker forward. Everything adds up. You make one change, and that creates another change, creates a need for another change, and it just keeps snowballing. And pretty soon, you're so abnormal in your postural setup that this becomes a necessity, and you can't live without your binky. So undoing all those bad habits is the first thing you need to do if you are presently using one of these walkers. You need to evaluate what you're actually doing to use it correctly and or abuse it and use it incorrectly. A good way to document that is have somebody video you walking with it, just the way you normally walk with it, to see what you're actually doing with it. And then make corrections with everything that we've talked about in this video series and what you're reading in the book to learn how to use this less and this more. Some of you will be able to come off of it, some not, but you can all learn how to use it better, make your movements even with it better and easier. So another point is, look at the width of these legs back here. If I stand back here behind it, and I have my feet, I think they're about shoulder width apart there, I'm standing inside of it. Now, this happens to be a model that is a little bit wider, taking into account that most people that use these, or I should say that many people that use these, have this wider stance where their feet are out here. Now, every time I move forward with this walker, I'm kicking the legs of it. For those people that do that, how do they respond? What do? Now they're back here. They learn to stand further and further behind the walker. Now, if they're taking small strides back here, they can be fairly close. But if they're attempting to take these longer strides, they're all over. They're kicking this thing every which way, causing this to be unstable because they are very unstable. So there again, those people, to get back here away from it, keep their feet away, they're stooped way forward over here. Very dependent on the walker, very problematic. So the height of it should be enough where you can have relaxed elbows, standing more upright, which forces you to be closer to the walker to be using it more appropriately. And when you can do that, when you can stay on the inside of this walker with smaller strides and not depending on it so much, because you've corrected a lot of your postural and balance problems with transfer of weight and a better foundation, you're going to start to wean yourself off this. Yes, it's nice to have when you get tired. Oh, especially those wheeled walkers that have the built-in seat and compartment to throw your stuff in, act like your purse, and then you can turn around and sit on it. Those are very, very handy for those people that require them. Here, there's no seat on it, so when people get tired, what do? They lean into it, push into it with their upper body. But the better you are at supporting yourself with your feet with this improved posture, you can still do the same thing, but you're doing it here. I'm resting now a lot on my arms, less on my legs. I'm also just pushing straight down, and you see the difference in my posture here as opposed to something like this. It takes less work, less problematic. It just takes time to develop those skills. Now, this walker with the skids and the wheels, it moves around this hard, smooth surface very easy and turns very easy. But those with just posts on them, even with the tennis balls, where it will slide on this, there are many surfaces where it doesn't want to move. And what you'll see when people want to change directions that are using these walkers, many times they will want to go that way. They'll do this. Now look at my posture. The pressure now is on the outside of this foot, pushing me into this walker. It's on the inside of my right foot, but weaker or less pressure than what's on the outside of this foot. Remember, those people that are doing this, they have limited ability with their movements because of that restricted posture. So when they do this, their feet are still pointing this way, their walker is pointing this way, their upper body is turned this way. All they've done is cause themselves another problem, and this is where a lot of accidents happen. Now, I'm being pushed into that direction because of that pressure that's on my foot. So to get this foot over it, now they're going to be shuffling their feet for the most part because that's very awkward with the way they are. But let's take it on those surfaces where they can't shuffle their feet because the ground's a little bit too rough. There's something that's causing their foot to stick. Now, when they lift this foot up, this knee to lift that foot up, they're going to be pushing pressure into the walker with that pressure on the outside of that foot. And where is it going? It's going into this side right here. That's where my body is being pushed when I have to lean way over here to get this knee up, get the foot off, and I'm pushing at an angle on that. And they tip, They say 1 second it was fine, the other second, I don't know what happened. Well, yes, you do. This is the stupidity I'm talking about. And people that do this, they're not being quote unquote stupid when they're doing it. They're just doing something foolish because they really haven't thought it through. Where this should be intuitively obvious, but because of all the other stuff going on, they really don't know what they're doing wrong, even when it feels so incorrect. Use that as a teaching point. If you're doing something, anything, and it starts to feel uncomfortable, unnatural, it feels unstable, stop for a second and think about what you're actually doing. In this case, look where your feet are, look where this walker is, and put some of this stuff together. Just stop making the foolish mistakes. You want to correct a bunch of the stuff you're doing, the problem stuff you're doing to help keep yourself stable, even if you have to continue using one of these, well, stop depending on this to correct all the mistakes you make and start paying attention to these postural and positional changes that you're making and realize you are becoming your worst enemy. Too many people start using these and they forget or they just don't pay attention as much to the other problem. It's almost as if, standing up here having this fear of falling is all consuming. I know how that feels. I went through it. And when they get on one of these walkers, they feel kind of a relief that, okay, now I have this. So when all those problems happen, this is going to save you. Well, it can't save you from yourself all the time. Some of the time, yep, get away with it, but not all the time. You make stupid mistakes, this will do stupid things with you. So be careful of putting that pressure into this walker inappropriately because it will tip very easily, especially when it's misadjusted and your posture is all askew. So going back to how do you turn with one of these walkers? And let's imagine this is just a 4-post walker without the wheels and the skids. So you're walking along and you want to turn that way. Well, you're going to do it in increments. You're going to stop, move it just a little bit, move your feet, move it just a little bit, move your feet, move it a little bit, move your feet. You want to stay squared up to the walker. Now, if you're walking with a wheeled walker with the swiveling wheels on it, you can stay right behind that walker. And that's what you would need to do. You need to stay lined up with this walker for the best stability that you can have using it. This is an extension of you when you're using it. And that's the way you have to use it. If you want to turn that way, you're not putting this foot way over there and coming around. No, you have everything coordinated. You have to coordinate the use of this as well. Smaller movements, and keep this in front of you. And here on this floor, where it skids easy, rolls easy on the floor, it's right here in front of me. So when I need that, it's right there. But when it's off to the side, this stuff starts to happen. There are many designs to these walkers. There are the tall ones where you rest your arms in them and you have the handles up here with the handbrakes on them. Well, those that have very weak legs, those can be handy, but can also be very detrimental because they're higher up. You have all the upper body weight here, and they're easily tipped. Now, let me talk to those people who are starting to transition out of these, and what a wonderful thing. after you've been working on all this stuff and working on these videos, you're becoming more supportive and more stable here just on your feet and legs, and that's great. But you still need a little bit of support. And a walking stick isn't quite supportive enough, and a cane, I don't really care for them because you're leaning into them too much. One thing I've done with many people that are in that position when they're working with them is I have them use them from the outside, using them standing here at the side and walking with the walker this way. It allows you to put a little bit of a lean and a little pressure on it, but not a lot, for all the reasons we've talked about. But if you can transition to here, and having this forward of you just a little bit is handy, so it doesn't get back here too much. Now, a 4-point walker, this is not going to work. This one works. It has the wheels on the front and the skids and a nice smooth floor. On other floors, if you have the wheel walker, it's handy. You can do that too. Say this gives you a little bit of support, but forces you into using more of your feet and less of this. Now you can see here as I walk with this, I have to put enough pressure into this walker the way it's set up to get it to move. Now one of those wheel walkers, it's going to move very easily and sometimes too easily. So if you're walking with your hand on the brake, be careful, because if it starts to move too easily and you squeeze that brake, you keep moving and the walker says, whoop, it stops real quick. So be very careful with this. And this is not for everybody, but for those people in that transition again, this gives them a little bit of support. And then when they tire and they need it, right here it is. If you lean on it too much, you can push it away from you. If you're standing away from it too much and you're pulling it, you can tip it in toward you. So no matter what you do with these things, you need to use it appropriately. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. It's like trying to use a walking stick with too tight of a grip on it. It's not useful anymore. The same thing here. For the same reasons, get into your feet, use this as just an aid that it's meant to be, nothing more. If it's too low, instead of slouching over, bring this up so you're more this way. Now, let me warn you, be careful with that, because remember, people that are moving around, not coming forward onto the walker, people move around, they're back here on their heels. So if you take one of these people and arbitrarily bring this up without giving them instruction, without paying attention to all of this, without prepping them for this, now with it being higher up, their posture is going to be more upright, and it's very, very easy for them to sit back. So be careful with adjusting this too high or bringing it up too quickly. You might have to bring it up increments. But for those people that are way down here, too low, bring it up little by little to transition them out of that. Having it too low is just as bad as having it too high. Inappropriately used, they can make you look like your disorder is becoming much worse, much more quickly than what it actually is. Your physical appearance, how you physically move around, what your stability is, what your control is of you, your posture, is a big indication of how you are graded according to the disorder you have. Right or wrong, that's true. You can make yourself worse. Learn how to make yourself better. Learn to recognize those mistakes. Put it all together. So your walking stability, your standing stability, everything is better here. The less you have to use this, the more you're using just you, quicker you can get rid of it.